Hello, everybody. Welcome to coverage of the Venus and Mercury League. We are in season 3. We are in week 2. My name's Hai. I'm joined here today by the MightyLinguine herself, Caroline Kavanagh. How are you, Caroline?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. Did you know it's Friday?
Oh, did I not say Happy Friday? I always say Happy Friday.
You probably did. Oh, I was just making a joke. I was just being very excited. It's been a very long week here. I'm in Canada now, so it's long. It's Friday. I'm very excited. I don't think I have many plans this weekend, so I'm happy to just chill.
For those of you who have noticed something very sparkly and shiny on Caroline's head, we should say, because this is the first time you've been on the broadcast since your glorious, stunning victory in season 2. So, well done, Caroline! Congratulations again, and maybe you can defend your title.
Defend it as in justify or defend as in win season 3? Because don't worry, I have plans for both.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to comment on my crown. I actually did go searching for like a kid like plastic crown. And unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot of options, but there was this really pretty one. And so this is a pretty big stray for me, I'm going to say, to get this nice little sparkly thing. And it's actually pinned in there pretty good. So I can get pretty excited and it will still stay on. You can't take it from me yet. We have till the end of the season to get it.
All right. Well, that I have personally seen how many pins have gone into that crown of Caroline's head, so it will literally be on there for the entire season. All right, Caroline. So we've got 4 very exciting feature matches lined up today. But before we get into it, I do just want to quickly address something which is the news today. The VML, we're trying to represent folks of marginalized genders within the Magic community, and central to that mission is fighting for the representation and rights of people in our demographic, in our community. And so we're very, very sorrowful and extremely sad to hear of the passing of United States Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was obviously a huge icon for women's rights, for feminism, and also, just to generally in support of the rights of people of marginalized genders within the US. And, neither of us are in the US right now, but we know a lot of you are. We know a lot of our viewers are and our players are. So, our thoughts really go out to Justice Ginsburg's family and also to everybody affected, which is, I'm sure, all of us. All right, so let's get into the feature matches for today. Oh, before we do the feature matches, I just want to say a very big thank you to Lodestone Coffee and Games in Minnetonka, Minnesota, for making the VML possible this season. We are working with them as our WPN partner. They are super cool. They're a really cool store in Minnesota. They have single sealed products, everything, board games, gaming supplies, anything you could want. So check them out on Twitter at LodestoneCG, and just try and support your local game store through this time. Oh, I guess we should look at the prizes, Caroline. This is the first time you and I are looking at the prizes together on air.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what I'm going to win in first place. That's great. An invitation to the Zendikar Rising Championship? When did we get that? I kid. I knew. This is so cool. I'm so excited. Oh, and a year sub to CFB Pro?
Wow. Yeah.
I really need to come first this year.
Huge thank you to Wizards and to Channel Fireball for helping us out with the prize for this season, and the prize pool, the cash prize pool, is sitting at roughly $2,500. So that's a really sizable sum for everybody.
If I could do that whistle thing, like the low whistle, I would do it. I just can't whistle. So just picture that. Wow.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Thank you to Ali Arias for raiding. Thanks for bringing your friends to the VML stream. I know, Ali, you're a VML participant as well, so nice to see you. All right, let's have a quick look at the metagame for this week before we get into our feature matches. So this is the sunset show for Old Standard. I know some of us have been playing with some of the new cards already, but
you've been on Arena? Lucky. Must be nice. Must be nice. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've only managed to do like 1 or 2 drafts, but have been playing a little bit. But this is the last week of Old Standard, and here we are: 17 copies of Sultai Ramp, 12 copies of Mono Green, 10 Rakdos Sacrifice. Are you surprised by any of these numbers?
I don't think so. The thing that I'm so curious about is, at least it was in week 1 and maybe the same in week 2. There are multiple matchups where people brought Sultai on one side and Mono Green on the other side, and I'm pretty confident that both players thought they have a good matchup. And I still to this day have not figured out who was right. I won my matchup against Sultai last week, but honestly, I just drew all my creatures in the right order and Smush just attacked and didn't do a lot of thought processing. I know that it's been mixed results. I saw his numbers like Mono Green had like a 52% win rate or something. I'm quoting from Jess's article, but not very well. So feel free to read it if you want better numbers than what I'm guessing at. But overall, I just want to know who wins in the Sultai Mono Green matchup, and why do we all think it's ourselves?
Yeah, I've definitely heard Sultai players say, it's close, but I think I'm slightly favored. And then I've heard Mono Green players say, it's close, but I think I'm favored.
So someone's wrong. However, I will say with a little asterisk, the Sultai Ramp decks are so vast in what they can actually play. Right. So the asterisk really allows for, yes, you can show up with like 4 Aether Gusts and 4 Eliminates and 4 Heartless Acts and likely have a pretty good time against Mono Green. But that could put you in a tough spot against other decks. So I don't know. I guess our Sunset show is hopefully we'll get to find out if we have any of those matchups. And if not, someone let me know. Someone DM me or something. I'm so curious.
All right. I'm just going to give everyone a quick little preview of the matches we've got lined up. So from Division 2, we have got the one that we're currently going to bring up. It's going to be Deny on Mono Green, and Deny this week was against Tesseract. And then after that, from Division 3, we're going to be bringing you... no, it's not going to be... Sorry, after that, from Division 7, we're going to be bringing you Samantha Murphy against Avery, who's also called Pretty Princess Kitty, an awesome name. After that, we're going to be jumping back through to Division number 3, where it's going to be Jess. Not Jess. You were just talking about Jess. Which one do you think about Jess? Jen Krotz, flying the flag for Canada against Nessa Meow Meow. And our last feature match of the evening, which everybody is definitely going to want to stick around for, it's going to be two of the biggest names in Magic streaming today. It's going to be Meebo against Bloody. So lots of really cool matchups to look forward to this evening.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was getting lost in the Mono Green because I love it. So I was just like, oh wow, 2 Great Hinges in the main. I love it. I was just like losing it. There's also Growth Chamber Guardians in this list that weren't in my list. So yeah, that sounds all great. How you definitely listened to everything you said.
Well, no, tell us about Danae's Mono Greenness. Like, what stands out to you? Why has she made these decisions?
I don't know. So it's pretty interesting. So there's a typical 1-drop Intel Collector, typical 4 of 2 drops with Ooze. There's some 3-drop variation with less than normal Lovestruck Beasts and some Yorvals. At least I was just checking. But then there's regular curve with Questing Beast and Vivian and Stonequill Serpent. But then the deviations happen, and the deviations I'm super curious about are the Paradise Druids. That ramping ability seems insane in the Mono Green, at least in the mirror. Like, you want to get, the more mana you have, the better. And then Growth Chamber Guardian is an amazing, powerful card if you can get it to go long. Like, if you get a free copy of itself and then, Sultai gets rid of it, you're like, okay, well, here's another one. So those are really powerful cards depending on the matchup. And then we have, of course, the Primal Might. So I'm pretty curious because I made very different decisions, even though we all use green cards, and I'm excited to see what's going on here.
All right.
So we're not playing Insulte, by the way, which I was trying to remember what we were playing against. I do now remember. We're playing against Rakdos Knights.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can have a look. It's so Danae is going to be playing against Tesseract, and Tesseract this week has brought Rakdos Knights. So just looking at this, it's your Fervent Champions, your Knights of the Ebon Legion, your Rotting Regisaurs, and Caroline, do you believe?
I do. I believe so much in the cleave that I put it on the cards to watch list because I was looking at this list a lot. I think there's some key cards. Blacklands Paragon is going to be really huge. That ability to actually trade with Questing Beast is really a card or an ability that none of your other cards really have other than Regisaur, which you probably don't want to do, or the Bone Crusher Giant. So that surprise ability off a 3/1 is pretty sweet. And that Ember Cleave, I think, is going to help you and the game. One thing that I noticed in the mono green matchups in the mirrors is that you trade damage very early between your two creatures, and then you often trade off your board until you have a huge board. And then they can't really do anything. You can't really do anything. Then you draw a powerful spell from your deck, and you can push through damage. This matchup here is going to push a lot more damage in the early game, and then have those bigger things like Regisaur and Bone Crusher Giant to hold off the board. So, and then their spells are going to damage you either in a big attack with Ember Cleave, or incidental like Stormfist Crusader, or a flash threat end step. Like, I just think that you're possibly capable of doing more surprise end damage than you would say in the normal mono green mirror, and I think that's going to be pretty different. The player Tesseract really wanted to play against mono green. So I have to imagine that there's a process and a reason behind that, and I'm pretty excited to see what that is.
All right, well, let's head down to the action, and we'll find out whether Tesseract's gamble pays off here in this matchup. Opening hands now for both players, both looking pretty reasonable here, Caroline.
Yeah, so this is interesting. We don't have a ton of mana. We have, 3 is a good number, but we have 2 of these Growth Chamber Guardians, and they're a great mana sink, but we also have the Ooze, which is going to be a pretty decent mana sink here too. So really at this point, Danae?
I'm going to go with Danae. Yeah.
Danae just needs lands. I think we have a lot of spells that we can cast at many points of the curve at this point. So we just need lands and some sort of interaction with Vivian or Primal Might. Whereas Tesseract, testing me today a lot for sure, is the same thing. It has all the threats and short on lands. So interesting sort of place that both of our players are in here.
All right, looks like both players out on the board pretty early with their 1-drops and 2-drops. The Gust Bones and Stormfist Crusader for Tesseract, Pelk Collector, and that Growth Chamber Guardian. Wow, drawing 2 more copies of Growth Chamber Guardian.
That is unfortunate. The bonus of that card gets a lot worse when you only have 1 left in your deck. In fact, so much so that Danae is actually recognizing that and saying, hey, opportunity to trade. I'm going to take this trade. I was sighing out loud because with the Stormfist Crusader, Tesseract was not able to draw a 3rd land, which I have potentially identified as a pretty key part of this matchup. Ooh, this Stonecoil is pretty sweet.
Stonecoil Serpent on the stack. Bone Crusher Giant is going to take out that Pelk Collector before it can grow. Tesseract still looking for lands, still unable to find that 3rd mana.
Yeah, this is going to be like there's a lot of threats in everybody's hands, but Danae is able to cast them and Tesseract is not, and that could matter. The Danae creatures are going to get pretty big pretty quickly, and it's going to be tough when we can't activate the Knight of the Ebon Legion for Death Touch, or we can't even play our Regisaur. Eventually we will get to, which is nice, and we'll have a lot of things to discard because we have a lot of cards in our hands.
Well, I mean, not a bad turn here for Tesseract, as she is able to develop out both of those knights, the Knight of the Ebon Legion and the Fervent Champion. Questing Beast, though, coming down right on time, turn number 4, cannot be blocked.
So life totals are tied here. We did get that 3rd land, and is it in time? from our point of view, we do see that Danae does not have any removal for it. So, no way of Vivian into, do damage with our questing beast or anything crazy. So it is actually going to be good enough, from open hands from where we're looking at. But Kestrek can probably imagine, hey, this is probably dying. I can picture a way where this is dead.
Yeah, definitely plenty of spells in Danae's deck that can take down that Rotting Regisaur. Just a land for the turn, though, and we'll see Danae developing out this Scavenging Ooze.
So this is a signal. This is saying, I don't have that Vivian that you think I have. And
cool.
This is sort of where I put our game state going, right? Early changes of damage, eventually creatures on board where they can't attack. We're both creature decks. This is how it's going to work out.
Right.
And now we need to figure out, will this Embercleave be enough eventually when we get the red source, which we just did? Will this Embercleave be enough to do lethal damage? And I'm not doing any combat math because math is for blockers, but I'm going to assume yes. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, you did see Danae, not attacking with that questing beast.
And
this is going to be a massive attack with this.
I mean, we have 13 toughness, so it's probably not exactly enough on this turn because we can gain 3 life with Ooze. Or at least 2 that I can see, and I think 1 more. But this is a big turn. Like, drawing that double red mana there is really important. We weren't coming out of this turn. I don't think that, Tezzeret was able to attack if that had not happened, so that's good.
Yeah, looks like it's just going to be Questing Beast in front of Regisaur. This leaves the way open for a massive Embercleave here, should Tezzeret choose to go for it.
Yeah, I think we might be, or Danae might be in trouble here with this Embercleave going on. Likely the Regisaur, just the most damage. So it'll be 4.
Right.
It's 12 damage. It's definitely lethal the way that Danae blocked, unfortunately. I actually think it might have just been lethal anyway. I just assumed it was lethal because Embercleave is a lot and Regisaur is a lot. And I was like, I'm just going to let this play out because...
I mean, it's true. Like, usually, you see a 7/6 giant Tyrannosaurus Rex looking thing charging towards you, holding a big flaming sword. Like, you're probably going to be dead at the end of that exchange.
You and I have talked about this, but maybe Chad has not. Where is the Embercleave holding the sword?
I honestly, at this point, who knows? Like, it's probably strapped to the nose or something, like a horn.
Also, I like that you just accepted the fact that we have talked about it, because we definitely have talked about it.
We've talked about it a lot, possibly even on this very stream.
My theory is in the mouth, for what it's worth.
In the mouth, okay. Yeah. But then it can't also use its teeth. We're entirely missing sideboarding here, but we did see some Return to Natures come in for Danae on the mono green deck, and looks like Tezzeret is going for gonna cut some of these Rimrock Knights.
I think we changed our mind.
We changed our minds on that.
A little oopsie doopsie. That's a phrase.
I definitely saw some eliminates and other spells for red black knights as well. Looks like it's gonna be a mulligan for both players here.
Yeah, Tezzeret's opening hand had Regisaur and 2 cleaves. So really, you need to ask yourself, do I believe in this cleave?
Well, if the arms are too small to hold 1 cleave, they're definitely too small to hold 2 cleaves.
I mean, you've heard it here. It's science. There's no refuting.
It's science. All right, turn 1 Fervent Champion for Tezzeret, and it's turn 2 Paradise Druid here for Danae. Wow, able to get that ramp going.
Ooh, that was a fantastic draw. I don't think that was that was not in Tezzeret's opening hand, but she drew a Stormfist Crusader for turn, and I think that's going to help her out of the mulligan. And yeah, we got but Paradise Druid is such an amazing card that really is not around these days, so it's pretty exciting. That was a turn 3 questing beast.
Yeah,
Which
really
means next turn we get to go turn 4 of the Great Henge, should we need to.
Yeah,
and that's going to be tough to beat.
It goes back to what you were saying, Caroline, before we even started. You noticed that these Paradise Druids were, not something that everybody brings, but wow, really seeing them in action here as not just, unfortunately, takes down that questing beast.
Okay, back to the drawing board with this Great Henge. But we do get, we do have 5 mana next turn, so I believe, man, it has been a long time. Growth Chamber Guardian is not a tap, right? Like, we can just do it?
No, you can just do it. You can just straight up activate.
This card's not in Standard anymore. And I feel like it wasn't in Standard for the last 6 months.
Yeah, it hasn't been in Standard for a long time.
Yeah. But it's a great card, and this is awesome. We'll turn it into I want to say a 4/4 here. Nice blocking duty for that Fervent Champion. Get us some card advantage, and more importantly, get us back to Great Henge, the Great Henge range.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you. One thing I noticed...
We wouldn't want our viewers to be confused as to what card you were talking about.
Listen, I have some influences in my life that has really encouraged me to be honest and true to the word "the." So here I am.
All right.
I try. Okay.
Stormfist Crusader in. It does have menace, so both creatures are going to have to jump in front here. We expect to see Danae activate this Growth Chamber Guardian here. Looking at Tesserakt's hand, double Bonecrusher Giant available.
Yes. So what's interesting here is with these double Bonecrushers, as we're about to see, bad things are about to happen, unfortunately, for Danae. Because the Evolve is a trigger, it goes on the stack, and then Bonecrusher's like, 1 sec, and goes and does 2 damage. And then the Stormfist Crusaders do trade. The Stormfist trade. Oh my gosh, whatever. It trades with Paradise Druid.
Yeah, Paradise Druid gone. Stormfist Crusader also gone.
So
and Tesseract gonna develop out this Rimrock Knight.
Interesting. So one thing I want to point out, there actually was a possibility, while I was blundering through my words, there was a possibility for the second Bonecrusher Giant to also take out the Paradise Druid because it was tapped, because it activated the Growth Chamber Guardian. So there was a possibility for the Stormfist Crusader to stay on the board. That choice was not taken. That's fine. But it was kind of interesting. It's like, hey, I do this cool thing, and then I reveal like all my insecurities, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Tesseract, definitely did have that available, but chose to conserve the second copy of Bonecrusher Giant. Getting in here with this Rimrock Knight and Danae saying, nope, I'm not falling for that again.
So I want to talk a little bit about Danae's last turn, because it may have looked a little awkward, and I'm super excited how it worked out. Basically, Danae had the option to play the 2/2 Growth Chamber, which you're about to see, or the 4/4 Gem Razor. And even though it's more mana efficient to play the Growth Chamber Guardian, and it would have been 2 and then 3 and pump. The reason they did it this way is so that they would untap with a 4/4, play the Great Henge for 5 mana, which they did on this turn, and then be able to play another 2-drop. And that was extremely heads up. I was like, oh no, like, they're not being mana efficient, but this was insane. I mean, we did get blown out, but that's fine. Like, that's not how you envision your turn going, and I think that was an amazing play. That was really cool. And we do have other creatures, so we should be off to the races here. I think we accept this trade at this point, given that we have a Great Henge in play, so a life gain and some draw cards. I'm feeling pretty happy to be in Danae's seat right now, other than the fact that we're facing down 14 creatures. But our creatures are going to get pretty big in a second. Like, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, this Great Henge really it's going to start going off in a second. We did see that Bonecrusher Giant stop the Growth Chamber Guardian combo with the Great Henge, but this Yorvo into Paradise Druid curve, this Yorvo is suddenly able to trade with that Rotting Regisaur.
Yeah, and I'm trying to decide even if it does. Like, I was just thinking a little bit about how this next turn goes. Like, we might be willing to just put away this 1/1. Oh, well.
Embercleave
Wow.
off the Castle Lothwain for Tesseract. What a draw here in game number 2.
Not only is it an amazing draw, but I believe at this point it has to be lethal. Again, not count. Oh, wait. It's not lethal. We have a Return to Nature in our hand.
Oh, the Return to Nature. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Out of the sideboard for Danae. And we're going to see some sparks fly here.
This is going to go very well for Danae. Well, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter when this. One sec.
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't really matter when it happens, but
as long as we don't exile
a card from a graveyard.
A card from the graveyard, we should be fine.
Okay.
That was a very surprising outcome there with, a fantastic draw. Heads up to not play that Stonecoil Serpent and be like, nah, I'm holding up this Return in Nature, and worked out beautifully for Danae. I would say we're solidly ahead at this point, given that we are gaining some life. We have the Ooze now to gain us even more life. We have the Ram Through, which will actually stop another chance for Caroline to miss lethal.
We could just attack for lethal right now. Danae stealing this one with that Return to Nature here and forcing a decider here.
I'm just like overthinking. I'm like, okay, well, how do we come through the other turns? And what are we going to do? And then I look, I'm like, my opponent's at 8 and I have 8 power.
We should just kill them.
Yeah, I am bad at that. We did that on draft the other night too. So,
is there a difference between play and draw here in this matchup, in terms of how you sideboard?
So it was interesting. The Rimrock Knights did stay in, which is a bit surprising because they can't block. And I sort of envision this matchup going like very trade, and then big creatures kill you. But it looks like Tesseract has a totally different approach and, probably knows a lot better than I do, and wants to keep their creatures that kill with Embercleave. And I think that's why there wasn't a ton of changes. And even though on the draw, they're just like, nope, we still got to go for this punk you out plan. So here we are. The Great Henge is in Danae's hand. And this was a huge part of last game on the power level of just gaining all that life and getting all those counters and cards. So I'm curious to see how this goes for this match, game 3.
Couple of Pelt Collectors here in the opening turns for Danae. Looking at Tesseract's hand, does have this Bone Crusher Giant to be able to deal with the first one. Rotting Regisaur and Rimrock Knight, the other 2 cards, Noxious Grasp the draw.
Grasp is, I think, a pretty amazing draw. Ultimately, Danae is going to play something that with large power, like this Yorval, and try their best to get this Great Henge into play. And the Noxious Grasp is going to give Tesseract the option to stop that. However, they do have to do it before they get to know about the Great Henge. So it's not perfect. They do have to say, okay, do I kill every big thing? It's unclear. Tesseract is super close to this combination of cards that have killed in the past. Rotting Regisaur, Embercleave.
Yeah, Rotting Regisaur, Rimrock Knight, and Embercleave. Matches made in heaven here for Tesseract in hand. Going to start off with this attack, and looks like Danae's taking your advice, Caroline, and starting to make these trades.
Yeah, this is an interesting trade because we do have the Great Henge in play. But the one thing I like about this is it grows our Pelt Collector to a 3/3 anyway. So we're not losing a ton of things. Next turn we're going to play the Harbinger, and our Pelt Collector will be a 4/4. So really we're not losing a ton, and we weren't casting the Great Henge on our turn anyway. So I do like this. And Tesseract has to decide, how am I approaching this matchup at this point?
Tesseract did have the option of playing out this Rotting Regisaur, but choosing to hold up this Noxious Grasp instead. Garrick's Harbinger are going to be pretty annoying for that plan, but Noxious
That one does not get grasped.
Yeah. Just before we go on, I do want to say thank you to Yeoman5 for raiding with a party of 137. Welcome in. If you are just joining us, you are watching the Venus and Mercury League. We are a MTG arena league for people of marginalized genders in the Magic community. And this season, season 3, we are awarding an invite to the Zendikar Rising Championships for our winners. So if you have just joined us, welcome. We hope you stay. We have some really awesome featured matches today, such as this one. We've got Tesseract with Rotting Register out on the battlefield.
Just a note, if you did just join us, unfortunately, these are not new standard decks. We play over a week-long period, so players are actually still playing their matches as we speak, and so these are pre-recorded from within this week, and good that we don't play live because Arena was great today.
Oh, yeah.
So we're pretty happy to have all that space this whole week to play, and starting next week's broadcast, we will have brand new decks, brand new cards, and brand new archetypes. So I'm pretty excited. I hope you broke it, Yeoman. Let us know.
All right. I'm definitely going to be looking at what Yeoman's tweeting about for my deck choice.
Oh, yeah. Week. The deck lists are sweet here. So here's an interesting situation. So we got the Registrar coming in. We have a couple options. We could do the double block. I think the double block would really bring out the Embercleave, though, to be honest, it was coming out anyway. The double block would have ensured the Registrar was off the table and gone away forever. Instead, we decided to go for a chump block. We did deal with the Embercleave, but we are going to lose our Growth Chamber Guardian.
Wow.
Yeah, there was, the opponents have some emotes to had. I don't think the game is necessarily over, in my opinion, but, I'm potentially ready to be wrong. We do, Tesseract does have a chance to draw this Embercleave that they've been very good at drawing in the past. So that is still a possibility for sure. But this is going to contribute to taking over the game, as it will eventually grow and get quite large and gain us back some life. Because of that, I'm quite tempted to not block here, which Danae is also doing. So we are going to take 7, but we'll gain 2 back from some eating in our sideboard. Or sorry, not our sideboard, in our crate.
Yeah. So,
man, if you could eat creatures from your sideboard, that'd be busted.
So we've got Rotting Regisaur coming in, taking a big bite out of Danae's life total, going all the way down to 14. Scavenging Ooze is going to do a little bit of mulching, a little bit of a graveyard cleanup on the way out. And here comes the mana for the Great Henge to come down on, not on turn on 5, but with 5 mana. And we saw this artifact really take over the game last game, Caroline, and Tesseract with just a Black Lance Paragon in hand.
So this is pretty interesting. So this trade, this is presenting a trade with the Black Lance Paragon, but we actually have been holding this ram through for situations just like this. So we're going to get in 4 damage. We're going to get a creature out of this. We have no blockers. Questing Beast is a good choice. We have no blockers, but I think at 17, I'm feeling in Danae's safety at the moment.
Yeah, and looks like Tesseract believes is on the same page as you and is going to scoop that one up. So we see Mono Green coming back from a deficit of, losing the first game to take this one down 2-1. Were you expecting this matchup to play out that way?
It's interesting. I started when I was building the slides this morning. I started with the mono green deck, and I was like, okay, I like, this is doing cool things. And then I switched over to the Rakdos Knights deck, and I was like, hey, they seem very excited to play against mono green, but I was really picturing the matchup to go a little differently. But it's definitely biased because I just love the mono green deck. And I think if you have a game plan and you're happy for a matchup, it's not going to go perfectly every time, but it still is awesome that you had the chance to think, this is how I think the matchup will go. And that's just Magic. It's not always going to work out, but it's pretty cool that they were pretty excited to play against the deck that they thought they were going to play against.
Yeah, and that is definitely, one of the unique features of the VML that we talk about time and time again here, which is that deck lists are open, and because the whole schedule is published at the beginning of the season, you can actually look at who you're going to be playing next week and look at the previous decks that they've submitted. Because there's this kind of open information thing, players can really specifically meta game against something that they think is going to happen. But it does mean that they know, oh, my opponent probably thinks that I'm going to be playing this deck, so maybe I'm going to like level them up, and it just leads this very interesting deck choices, very interesting card choices for everybody in the VML. And if you want to find out a little bit more about that, we actually had an article come out this week by Bloody Mess Jess, which went super in depth into multiple different players' decks, how they modified them, how they decided to change tack for week number 2. And we're going to be bringing you more content like that as well. So maybe if one of the mods could put the link to the article in the chat, that would be great. And I would definitely recommend you have a read.
All right. Did you metagame against your opponent this week?
I did metagame against my opponent, but unsuccessfully. What happened was my opponent in week 1 was on Is It Prowess. I was on Sultai Ramp, and so I said, okay, my opponent was on Is It Prowess, so they're probably going to play some kind of assertive deck, was what I felt that they were going to do. So I put in a lot of removal spells into the main deck. Luckily for me, I kept in my 4 Narsets as a hedge because it's pretty good against Prowess. But then they did a full 180 and just submitted Sultai as well, ready for the mirror. So I definitely, things did not work out this week for me in terms of the leveling, for sure.
And you can read about some other levelings that went correct or went wrong, depending on whose side you're on. In Bloody Mess Jess's article, it's fantastic. I really appreciated the depth that was taken to write that article and all the deck lists that were, in fact, I believe this is correct, printed out. I saw pictures of them being printed out and like monitoring and checking things out.
Wow.
And I appreciate it. I thought it was awesome. So should we watch more Magic? Or should we talk about more Magic, I guess, is more clear?
We definitely should. All right, so our second feature from the week, we are going to be jumping to Division 7. It's going to be Avery, who's a pretty Princess Kitty, PPK, we put in the brackets there. And Avery this week is on Is It Counterburn?
This is a deck. This is
a deck. It's 4 copies of Dreadhorde Arcanist, a card that is kind of near and dear to my heart right now because I just loved the performance that Luis Salvato in particular put in with this card at the Mythic Invitational last week. I know that wasn't historic, but just thought a big Dreadhorde Arcanist fan now after seeing that happen. And Avery trying to do something similar here, powering out Sprite Dragon, Storming Entity with these prowess creatures and a bunch of cantrips, shocks, and the such to fuel that strategy.
I mean, the threats in this deck are threats that are found in Eternal formats. I know that, Dreadhorde Arcanist makes its way into Legacy easily and, is a mainstay staple there at this point. I saw rumors and saw attempts of Sprite Dragon in both Legacy and Vintage. And I know that in Modern, Stormwing Entity was really putting up some results as well. So these threats in the deck are Eternal staples in other formats, or yes, in Eternal formats. But the spells is where Standard gets a little less good. So we are playing things like Riddle Form, and some extra threats, and then we have our Crash Throughs, our Ops, our Shocks, some other things to help us along. And I think that is where the power level of the deck goes a little low. But when these cards, Dreadhorde Arcanist and Stormwing Entity, when they go off and they do their things, it's gonna look awesome, and I'm excited to see it.
All right, let's see what Avery is playing against this week. Avery is up against Samantha Murphy, and she has chosen to bring Tima Clover. Tima Clover, a pretty popular choice this week, in fact, putting in, I believe, 5 copies into this field of 64. Anything stand out to you about this list, or is this what we are expecting from Clover?
Yeah, so the first thing that jumps out at me on this page is the Nissas. One thing I could rely on with, full... I knew this was going to happen every time was Teamer Clover would be 4 ofs across the board. And I've been tricked. There's not 4 ofs across this board. There are some Nissas hanging out in here instead of a little bit more of the Escape the Wild. So I'm pretty excited to see how that goes. We have since said goodbye to Nissa, whether it was politely or not, depending on whose Twitter you looked at.
Wow. And just call me out like that.
I didn't mention names. You called yourself out.
I may or may not have tweeted, "Bye, girl."
And so I'm excited to see, how that plays out. I will say that there are a lot of flying threats on the other side of the battlefield, so it is likely Nissa will not take over the game in the sense that go to the ultimate stage, but could have a huge impact for mana, especially in a deck like this that has Fae of Wishes for granted for crazy things in our sideboard, like maybe this mass manipulation that's hiding out. We have our Escape the Wilds that always generates a bunch of things. We have an expansion explosion hanging out on the sideboard. So the Nissa could really help the game plan of just, I need mana, give me so much mana, which I assume this Temur Clover deck is doing. And it has to be said, this deck will look great if they play a Clover on turn 2. And it will look a little less good without that. So let's see if that happens.
Yeah, something we've been used to seeing. And before we jump into the match, I just wanted to quickly say that when we asked Samantha what her favorite mana cost was, it was the same as mine, which was 1 blue, blue, blue. The best mana cost in Magic.
The best mana cost in Magic is free, which is my answer to the question. So, and I have a lot more choices than you do, I would say.
Says the Trump player. All right.
Hey, Once Upon a Time was a recent free card. Thank you very much. Any spell like Cast Off Fire of Invention was free. Give me free any day. Okay, we have some opening hands here.
Yeah, let's have a look at these opening hands. So Fae of Wishes, Brazen Borrower, and Nissa for Samantha, and for Avery we have got a bunch of lands and some kind of reactive spells.
We do. We have 2 different bounce spells, which I actually didn't see when we were looking at the list. To be fair, we have we did mulligan to 5 for Samantha, or sorry, for Avery. Wrong names. For that opening hand.
Yeah, it is for Samantha. Samantha is on Temur Clover. We've just got the arrows.
Well, I use the arrows to figure it out.
All right. Turn 1, tap land for Samantha, Edgewell Keeper, and double Clover in hand as well.
Well, we won't get to see what it looks like to not have a Clover because we were covered on either of those.
Here comes Sprite Dragon on turn number 3 for Avery. Getting in for 1 and just going to hold up these reactive spells here for them. Back to Samantha now. We'll see whether she goes for this second Lucky Clover. Wow. Chooses instead to go for that Bone Crusher Giant on the Sprite Dragon. Although, wow, unsummon on the Sprite Dragon, and the way that Samantha stacked these triggers does mean that the copy does 2 damage to face for Avery, but the actual real copy of Bone Crusher Giant got fizzled there by that unsummon. So kind of a blowout here on turn number 2.
Yeah, and especially because Samantha's hand at this point, while it's got some great things, that Bone Crusher Giant was really going to carry us into kind of Eddie, draw a card, or just get us back kind of into the card for card advantage at the moment. This Beanstalk Giant is a pretty decent draw with our Lucky Clover. We can either get 2 lands this turn, or we could be patient and try and get 3 lands next turn. But looks like we are just going for 2 lands here. They come into play untapped, which is kind of cool. And which does mean we actually get to play our second Lucky Clover should we choose to. So pretty decent turn for playing all of our things from Samantha.
Yeah. Samantha really sequenced this turn very well. I would have been very tempted to just play out the second Lucky Clover and be full greed, but no, Samantha making full use of her mana here as Shock goes to face from Avery and Sprite Dragon.
It's kind of wild how close we were to just casting that Beanstalk Giant. This is really the turn where you're going to notice that lack of Bone Crusher Giant. Could you imagine if that Bone Crusher Giant was just chilling? and we go Edgewall Innkeeper, boom, draw 2 cards. That's almost game over at that point. So super amazing play from Avery there. So now we've been doing all this damage while me have been focusing on Samantha's draws. There's been a lot of damage coming in. So pretty interested to see how Samantha's able to get out of these sprite dragons. Like, they might just carry us to victory.
Yeah, coming in for 3 a turn doesn't seem like a lot, but there is that shock in the graveyard as well. Dreadhorde Arcanist, of course, able to cast a spell from the graveyard.
Well, I was doing a lethal count. When I do this might put us at lethal now.
So Royal Scions,
triggers on the friends going to 5. Pump putting us at 7. Shock. Oh, that's okay. That works. Shock putting them. I think this is lethal. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, I think this is lethal. Also, this.
Wait.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay. Avery was just counting. Not gonna target.
It is not lethal at this point anymore. 1, 2. Oh wait. No, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Okay. There was a lot of options. I think we were going to have lethal without the Scions, as you can see, because they Samantha ended up at -2, and the Scions added, I guess it added 3 power total. So maybe we were going to be short, but I'm not sure. There was a lot of things going on that turn, and there was a lethal line found. That's really all that matters.
And I think it just goes to show that decks like this, especially with Dreadhorde Arcanist decisions involved, really do require a lot of player skill to pilot very well. There are a lot of these very small branching decisions of this deck in terms of sequencing, where you're pointing your shocks and the such, and really nice to see Avery piloting this deck and finding lethal in that turn.
And this is the type of deck that, because it is kind of cheap to start getting in those hits with the sprite dragons, you can start pushing that little damage. You yourself mentioned at the end of the other turn, you're like, 3 of damage a turn is not a lot until it is, and that's the turn where we just managed to swing for lethal.
It was very scary.
So these sprite dragons get out of hand pretty quickly, and it's pretty impressive to be able to do. I was struggling to do that math as Avery had clearly done, and was like, "Well, this is lethal," and was attacking. So, pretty impressive for sure. The Team Art deck, by the way, doesn't sideboard that much, mostly because they are a wish board, so they have access to most of their sideboard at any time. That being said, we saw one change. Unfortunately,
I think just the Aetherglass, maybe.
I didn't know there was a red card that came in. The red 1-drop. It's like something Airstriker.
Reckless Airstrike. So it was actually a 1-mana instant, and I believe it either kills an artifact or it kills a thing it does 3 damage to a thing with flying. I think that's what it does.
I like it. Yeah, that's a little bit of a draft bin common there.
Oh yeah,
maybe uncommon.
That would be, left on the tables at the end of F&M kind of card.
What's that?
Oh my goodness.
Joke never gets old because we've been doing it for a while.
Wow. But this is kind of why I really love VML and really believe in what we're doing, because we are providing our players with that week in, week out engagement with Magic that, a lot of us are missing nowadays with COVID and with the pandemic. So really great to see a community forming here in the VML.
I feel that, and I completely agree. And I also completely agree that we, both Samantha and Avery, kept, I believe, hands they would love to see all the time. We both have curves, and we're both going to do our thing, and we'll just have to see whose thing is better.
All right. Just the princess there from the Love-Struck Beast getting in for Samantha. For Avery, looking in the hand now, a bunch of 1-mana spells, as well as Sprite Dragon and Dreadhorde Arcanist. So all the threats in hand for Avery, but not very many lands to work with.
No, and that is definitely something that will need to happen. We'll need some lands to make this a great hand. But just in terms of what is available to us, I couldn't imagine a hand that we would pick that's any different than that. Also, I wanted to check the like legality of a princess attacking a pretty princess kitty. Is there anything?
That's difficult. That's difficult. It might be like a struggle between two kingdoms.
Okay, that's fine. I was just checking. So, the Dreadhorde Arcanist, I'm trying to decide how greedy it is to attack, and I'm kind of in for it. I'm kind of excited.
I'm down. Oh, it looks like Avery's gonna go for this stern dismissal, get that blocker out the way, and here comes the Dreadhorde Arcanist. Jeez, these two creatures just working together, putting those counters on Sprite Dragon, and this is already a pretty scary force.
This is a lot of damage, and it's not done. Like, we have a shock in the graveyard still. We have an Aether Gust. Should we need to get this Dreadhorde Arcanist through? We now have a threat to play post-decision, which is what's happening here. So this is going to get gusted, putting a counter, making our Sprite Dragon a 4/4. For those counting at home, that's a lot. We'll get to eventually play this Stormwing entity for cheap for 2 mana, which is kind of insane if you think about it.
This is insane this turn. Aether Gust taking down that 5/5 and Shock taking care of Eddie as well, and a 2 mana 3/3 flyer with prowess. This is just this explosive power of this Izzet deck, and we can see why Avery's chosen to bring it here.
Yeah, and I have to admit, with all those spells kept on top, I can't imagine Avery not ending this game next turn. But I'm happy to be surprised. There is, I think this might have been drawn for turn. It looks like this Brazen Bar can will potentially change the possibility of lethal. But we do have 2 flying threats, so we're not in the clear with 1 Brazen Bar, but pretty excited to see how this turn plays out.
Yeah, Samantha also does have to actually shock in one of those lands in order to cast both sides of the Brazen Bar, so maybe a little difficult here to go down to 4. Does have to do it though. Oh, shock, a huge draw for Avery.
Oh, that was right on the top. Just sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. We knew that one was coming.
A great leaving on top there.
That was a great Jade Light Ranger
by Avery. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm surprised. You know, I genuinely feel an affinity for Jade Light Ranger because that is how I am. I will just scry things to the top and forget about it entirely.
Sorry, I do want to put we're going to do a lot of things this turn, so we're totally fine. I think if we had main phase shocked and then just cast it back with Dreadhorde Arcanist, that is 4 damage. And this is a Caroline effect, I imagine, like a little bit of like, hey, I got to do all these cool things, and maybe not taking the time to think, oh, my opponent is at 4 life. So totally reasonable and something I would do all the time. So oh my goodness.
And that's gonna take care of Brazen Bar, and that's gonna do it. A huge draw for Avery, taking this one down 2 games to 0 with Izzet prowess against Tima Clover.
That was a really crazy way to end that game. I really firmly believe that game was ending on that turn no matter what, because we did have the shock. So just to catch us up, if the Brazen Bar bounces one thing and tries to block the second thing, we have the shock to deal with it, which is the reason you would keep it in your hand in that spot. And instead, we're just like, we'll just play this negate that we just drew off the top because great. So pretty excited to see that match give us just these exciting big combat steps. The Teamer Clover can do some crazy things. Unfortunately, didn't get to do those things in that matchup, but pretty interesting decks from both players.
Yeah, I love to see these kind of tempo matchups. I love to see some bounce. Love to see some 2/2 flyers. So really great stuff here from both players. And, we'll see, I believe that means we'll see Avery advance to 1-on-1. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also, I believe both players are now going to be... Oh, no, that means Avery is advancing to 2-0.
Yeah.
So great, nice, clean record here for Avery going into the middle of our season here. And definitely, good games to both players.
And just, just to highlight a little bit, we haven't talked too much about the playoffs and stuff, even with the players. We've put it out on our website. We haven't really delved into it too much. But something you want to think about is we have 8 divisions, and 2 players from each division is guaranteed to make it forward into the playoffs. And then we have some wild card action. So in general, we don't want to hold anyone to anything, but a typical record of 5-2 will get you out of your division in some way. There's been some crazier things have happened, but that is a common thing that you can, aim for in your head is 5-2 will get me out of my division into playoffs. And so starting 0-2, is a bummer. I get that. But it's not the end of the thing. You have 5 more weeks to get those wins in various ways, including 4 and 3s made wild cards last year. We're a little bit bigger this season, so it's we're not really sure, but I know with certainty 5-2 is going to get you out of your division in some way.
Yeah. I mean, I know for a fact there were people last season that went 0-2 and then made the top 4. So, anyone can still make it at this point. It's still anybody's game. So yeah, definitely keep battling to everybody. Like myself, who is at 0-2 currently.
That pep talk was mostly for you, Hayu. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. All right. Should we jump to our next feature match?
Sure. Let's do it. I'm excited about this one. This is fellow Canadian Jen Krotz.
Jen Krotz this week brought a Teamer midrange, and we called it Teamer midrange, but this is really a Teamer Elementals deck featuring Genesis Ultimatum, as well as a plethora of other cards we're expecting from this Teamer list. And you have put there cards to watch: Risen Reef, Chandra, Awakened Inferno, and of course the Genesis Ultimatum as well. Jen this week says her key plan in the matchup is to be able to push the game along and inevitably take over with the resource advantage.
So that's actually awesome that you highlight that sentence, because the reason I put the 3 cards as cards to watch, at least 2 of them for sure, is that exact conversation of resource advantage. Risen Reef is a very small, random little 1/1 that does so much for getting us to our resources, including Genesis Ultimatum. And if we even get 1 or 2 lands off that Risen Reef, we are off to the races. And I think ultimately, card for card, the cards that Jen has are adding significantly more advantage to the board than our opponent, which we'll see in a second, is Sultai. However, we need a lot of mana to do that, and that's why I highlighted Risen Reef as one of those ways to do that. And another card, just in general, that's going to be hard to interact with is that Chandra Inferno, and that's going to stop that ability to just say, oh, I'm going to let the game go on forever. Those emblems can pile up very quickly. So I'm really excited to see all of our value generating cards play out, but we got to get past that early game, and that's the part of the game we're going to be looking at the most, I think.
I just also want to point something out, Caroline, which is that I believe this is the last time you're going to see our Boreal Grazer on a VML broadcast.
Oh my gosh, I should have prepared like a memory wheel, or Yeah. Okay, I will say there was a good clip from the Mythic Invitational this weekend of I think it was day 9 submitted a new deck. And our friend, good friends to both of us, Mani, just called him out, was like, you put a card that is not allowed anymore. And everyone's focusing on that clip, and I was over here focusing on poor Boreal Grazer and just getting thrown out, and just no one cares. And historic list, anyone? Anyone got anything from the historic?
Yeah, I mean, the Little Slothers has had its run in standard, and I think definitely outperformed expectations in terms of what everyone thought this card would be when we saw it in the limited format.
I always knew a Boreal Grazer. I knew.
You knew
from the beginning. Right. I was with you, my sloth friend. Okay, let's should we check out? Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
All right, so playing Jen this week, we have got popular Twitch streamer and personality Nessa Meow Meow. Nessa also actually has been making some forays into casting. We both did the last August edition of the Channel Fireball Pro Showdown. And Nessa has brought Sultai Ramp. Now tell us about Nessa's particular build of Sultai.
That's a good question. To be honest, these days with Sultai, or these past days with Sultai before the new set, it's really hard to answer that question. There are cards that are going to be there. There are going to be Nissas, there are going to be Uros, there's going to be Hydrate Graces, but not, depending on which list. Some there'll be a lot, some there'll be a little. Mm-hmm. But there's some cards in here that aren't always around, and it really depends on what you think you're playing against. So discard with Thought Erasure and Agonizing Remorse is not always common. It really, if you're playing against an aggro deck, you probably don't want to have them or might cut them all together. Narsets is speaking more towards you think your matches are going to go long, you're going to have a controlling match. You have Atris, the same thing, card advantage. And the lack of sweepers and the lack of spot removal in this list is actually really telling what Nessa thought that they were going to be playing against. So only 2 Extinction events. I don't even see like any Heartless Axe or any Eliminates or anything like that in this main deck. And I think overall that might be the right choice for playing this big metagame with Temur Elementals. But I am worried about how we're going to end the game, because once we get, we're not stopping the early game of Temur Elementals, so we're going to get to the late game most likely. And what happens when we get there? What happens if we're casting an Uro and they're casting a Genesis Ultimatum? So I'm pretty worried about that late game. And you can, but we've got a lot of things like Mystical Disputes and Negates and Aether Gust just to prevent that late game as much as possible. So I am really curious to see how this works out.
All right, let's head down to the match now, here from Division number 3 in Season 3, Week 2 of the VML. Opening hand here for Jen. Looks like it's going to be Aether Gust, Uro, and that Genesis Ultimatum.
This is one of those decks where you keep stuff like this. 4 lands is not a bad thing. When you plan on casting 5 mana spells, including this Yorion, which at some point I feel like I forgot to mention that this is a Yorion deck. So my apologies. This is how we drew it up, to be honest. This is what we're looking to do.
Alright, looks like Nessa's just thinking about her Mulligan decision a little as well. Does decide to keep 7 cards, so we are off to, not quite to the races, but certainly going here. Jen with those beautiful Serum Vision sleeves. My favorite sleeves, or one of my favorite sleeves at least. Just had to put that
there's
out
just
there.
so many though, is the issue.
I know, there's so many good sleeves now. Oh, I want those Secret Lair birds ones so much, Caroline. I know I've talked about them constantly to you. I really
I think I have them, right?
Yeah, you got them off the Historic Challenge, and I'm still jealous to this day. Right, Temple of Mystery. Just finding Cavalier of Thorns. That's going to stay on top for Jen. Plenty of action in hand with this Steam Vents coming in untapped on turn number 3, and Uro exactly on time, getting the ramp going, getting the card draw going, doing Uro things.
That's such a good statement, because gotta be saying it a lot, especially in the next couple days, I imagine.
Oh.
Uro doing Uro things.
Oh. Turn 3 Narset here for Nessa Meow Meow.
Well,
is Narset good against this Elemental deck?
It's gonna stop the Uro from doing Uro things. However, ultimately, I think the answer is no, in the sense that a lot of our cards that draw cards in quotations break the rules of drawing cards. So, for example, this Cavalier still gets to do a land. The Genesis Ultimatum will still get to do things. So ultimately, I don't think this Narset will be as impactful in this matchup.
Narset going digging once again. Did find that Aether Gust off the previous activation. Genesis Ultimatum in hand for Jen, as well as Aether Gust and Mystical Dispute.
And we are about to enter into a turn where we can cast Genesis Ultimatum on Jen's, I want to say turn 5, if I'm following correctly, though I probably am not. I think it's turn 5.
I believe it is. Oh, Thought Erasure going to take a look at Jen's hand here and taking that option away from her.
Yeah, that was going to be interesting because I wasn't sure if Jen should cast it, just because we do have the dispute up later to help counter war it. But now we don't have the choice, so instead we get to redraw this Cavalier.
Cavalier of Thorns coming back, doing once again, going to take a look at the top 5 cards of the library and put a land onto the battlefield. This, I mean, just look at how many lands Jen has in play already. This is disgusting.
Oh, this comes into play untapped, I should say, because it matters there. Like, taking that island means this Aether Gust is now an option, or anything. But we did Shock. Oh, so I guess the Mystical Dispute is now also an option. Oh, that's very good against Nissa.
Yeah, primed and ready. Just gonna be an Uro out of Nessa's hand. Gonna let that one go. What do you think about countering this front side of Uro, Caroline?
I would be more interested in gusting it than I would be countering it. Because the gust will either put it as a draw, which might not be a great draw for them, so they probably wouldn't put it on top, or, puts it out of the way for another turn. So I would be more tempted to gust it if I was considering doing anything with it, which we were not. So instead,
well, Narset is down. Narset taking a big hit from that Cavalier of Thorns. Nothing to stop it this time. Uro is going to immediately take advantage of that and come crawling back out of the graveyard.
Okay. So one thing to note, if you're following along at home, Jen, has a lot of lands in play, a lot of cards in our hand, still has access to that Yorion should we want to put it in our hand. But on the battlefield, we have 2 creatures, and they are both odd converted mana costs, both Uro and Cavalier. So Nessa does have 2 extinction events, and that should be on everyone's mind, including Jen's. Is this something that I should be afraid of next turn? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, Jen leaving up that Mystical Dispute, but Nessa, is at 6 lands, so would be able to play around it, and it is known information.
If Nessa has a land, it's not clear Nessa has land drops. There was, I don't think they missed any, but it looked a little dicey.
Yeah, it definitely felt like, and I've been on that side of the matchup many times in Salta, where you just think, I just need one more land, and then I need another land to fuel my Uro, and then I need another land to do,
yeah,
this and that.
Feel that.
It's a very land-hungry deck. I love to see Nessa play the single copy of Castle Lothwain. It's like one of my favorite additions to the Salta list. Gonna go for that Narset though. Looking less likely that there's an extinction event in hand.
Yes, I would agree with, this Narset screams to me help me find the extinction event, which it did not. So this is a spot, honestly, where I would, I think the Mystical Dispute isn't getting rid of Nissa, there we go, anymore. And
Nessa's Nissa?
It is possible that's probably why we're holding this gust still. I was kind of tempted to do that to Uro, be like, hey, go away for a turn. But because the gust is needed to deal with Nissa, it makes sense that we don't do that. So let's get some card advantage.
Oh wow. Second copy of Cavalier of Thorns joining the fray for Jen. Does now have 3 threats that are open to the extinction event possibility. Back over to Nessa now. 2 copies of Uro in the graveyard. Presumably some of those are going to be able to be escaped soon. Jen...
And for what it's worth, gusting an escaped Uro is also kind of, tricky. You're like, haha, I used all your creatures or all your land cards in your graveyard.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The Nissa threat is still such a scary thing that I can't tell if, Snap, do we do it, or are we thinking about Nissa? So,
Yeah. Looks like Jen is going to go for that Aether Gust. Gonna delay this Uro a little longer. We'll see whether Nessa decides to put it on top, because she does have that second copy of Uro in the graveyard already. Jen setting an upkeep stop here.
We do have a Castle Vantress, so nice opportunity to use some of our infinite mana.
It is genuinely infinite.
Oh, keep that one on top. Hey, wait, where are you going? Boral Grizzly, come back.
Hi, Slothers. Bye, Slothers.
Slothers in chats for memories, please.
Aww. Okay, looks like before Uro is able to attack, Nessa does have the Aether Gust in hand, so going to say, hey, you did this to me. I'm gonna do this back.
Jen was pretty heads up there. We didn't play the Fable Passage, and really expose that Fable Passage can get you in a lot of trouble when you're playing against something like Aether Gust. So pretty awesome that it stayed in our hand and we didn't get tricked into doing anything crazy with it. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's never fun when you go to crack your Fable Passage and your opponent goes, I have a response.
So one thing to note, because this is my role today, is Yorion is odd, which is the same as everybody else. So that is why Yorion stayed at home. Possibly that's why. And then there's also, it would mill the Uro away with the Cavalier triggers. So kind of a combination of things. This is the third Narset that we're seeing.
Wow.
So
Narsets for days, Vanessa.
Narset for days, and didn't find the Extinction Event, which I have to imagine was, we don't have a ton of spot removal in our deck. So that, in fact, not sure we have any.
Well, Nessa did already use at least one Aether Gust as well.
Right.
So, and we did talk about earlier how there were no Heartless Acts in the main here.
I think if we counter this, Nessa goes to 9, and then we have, we can counter. We can win the war because we have a lot of mana, right? One.
Yes.
Oh, we would not win the war if they counter twice, but
right.
Yeah.
There was that double dispute in hand for Nessa. Jen gonna let this one go, gonna let the Hydro Crisis come down. It's only gonna offer a chump block here, as there's lethal damage being presented in this attack with a pair of Cavaliers. Nessa going all the way down to 4. Although, we've seen these Sultai decks come back from this kind of situation before, Caroline.
We have, and one thing to note is, there was really a tension on Jen's turn of presenting lethal or killing Narset, which we did not do. We left Narset not only alive, but we left Narset with an activation, which puts us even closer to this dream of finding that Extinction Event. And things, if it's found on the next turn, things get a little hairy. We're still at a pretty healthy life total and we have some awesome cards in our hand, but...
A whiff here from Narset. -2, look at the top 4 cards of your library and put them on the bottom. And, we don't know whether Nessa found this Extinction Event yet. Jen showing...
feels like a Nissa to me. This is a typical way to interact with your lands by manually tapping them.
Yeah. Mystical Dispute. Jen knows, of course, that Nessa is able to pay for it, and since both of the cards in Jen's hand are open information to Nessa, both players, kind of on board with what's happening here.
So we only need one of these Cavaliers to get across the finish line, and currently one of them is doing that. So this Nissa, while acceptable to fight over, is not the end, is not it. Nessa needs more than Nissa. Say that 10 times fast.
Wow. Yeah.
Uro is an option, right?
Uro would... I think there would have to be a land as well as Uro, because otherwise... Oh, or it can be escaped. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Right.
I meant escaping. So this puts Nessa to 7 with a blocker again, and the Cavaliers are 5 power. So this is enough at the moment. Let's see if Jen can draw something that will interact with this Uro.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out also, last turn, Jen did hover over that copy of Yorion in hand and decided not to deploy it. You know, probably with some of the considerations you were talking about earlier about Extinction Event and odd CMCs, but this decision not to play out the Yorion, leaving Jen with a not ideal attack here.
Chandra would be, I think, lights out. Chandra, I think, has a minus starting power. I don't know if Chandra's ability starts at 6 or not. Can't remember.
I believe you're right, Carol.
Yeah.
I believe she comes in at 6.
So I think because I'm digging for Chandra and I already have powerful cards in my hand, I'm putting both of these on the bottom. But it does feel awkward to put a powerful thing like Risen Reef. Wow, it did not occur to me. Ooh. Oh. I can find us a Chandra. Oh, no, we're good. We're not in our main phase yet. We're not in our, yeah. Jen, we're not in our main phase. One sec, you gotta go to your main phase. There we go.
Found the main phase button.
All the time for what it's
worth. Omna.
This just does damage to the face, right?
Right. Omnath,
I think this does it too then.
Yeah, Omnath is able to. It's equal to the number of elementals. So this looks like 5 elementals and
5. Wait. Okay. Yeah. These are different triggers. Jen knows. I have no idea. I'm gonna assume that those happened the way they were supposed to. Yeah, that Genesis Ultimatum was another card we could find, and that's why as hard as it is to put a cool card like Risen Reef on the bottom, that was completely the correct thing to do. We drew our powerful card, and boom, we took game 1.
Yeah, very nice. From this Team of Elementals list, looking at the sideboard now, Disdainful Strokes coming in, but the rest of the board seems kind of redundant.
Yeah. And this is sort of what I was highlighting at the very beginning of this matchup. We're not necessarily pre-boarded against mid-range, but we are doing bigger things than the mid-range decks are. And our sideboard needs to adjust for the matchups that are doing other things. So the aggro decks, which is, you can see we have a lot of removal for the aggro decks, whereas I think we're pretty at home against the Sultai deck.
Yeah, things definitely seemed to go pretty smoothly there in game number 1 for Jen. Let's see whether she can lock this one up in 2, or whether Nessa can force a decider here. Just having a look at the standings, and it looks like both of these players actually are 0-1, so both of these players looking to get on the scoreboard this week.
Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of hand that will play out great if we draw these lands, which we so far have. And this is the kind of hand that you're nervous about keeping. In a deck that does well when we have 14 mana in play, it's tough to keep a hand with only 2. But
well, Jen able to get this Leafkin Druid out on turn number 2, so the mana is starting to flow, if not, quite at the full cup runneth over stage that we're used to.
I'm just laughing at Omnath. Do you think this Omnath knew what was in for the future?
Did it know its final form? Oh, Aether Gust going to actually take care of that Leafkin Druid.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Not only did it take care of Leafkin Druid, it took care of the summoning stick Leafkin Druid. So that actually means Jen will have access to this negate or gust should she need it on this turn, which will be very powerful.
Yeah, and here's this Nasa, a juicy target for that negate in hand. Jen, thinking about this a lot, that 1 mana up from Nessa Meow Meow, possibly representing the Mystical Dispute, although I'd have to double check the deck lists.
No, you were right. There's 4 in the main deck for Nessa. I have to think that exchange is okay for Jen, because her goal is to get Nessa out of cards, and they are going to end at 3 cards in this turn. So, not drawing the lands is not part of our plan. So, Jen's deck should probably do that. But
well, there is an Omnath in hand for Jen that would be able to take this Narset down to 1, so rather. But no.
Oh man, that was tough for Jen, because it's so tempting to just play the Uro there and hope that you get a land, so that you have Gust up for Nissa, because I think we're struggling if we're not going to play anything a turn except this Aether Gust.
Yeah, and Thought Erasure now going to take the option away here from Jen. Although Thought Erasure actually decides to take the threat away, takes Omna.
Okay, Jen needs a land here to be able to really steadily start pressuring Nessa. Got Nessa down to a spot, low cards, low choices, but with no lands, we're not able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, Nessa developing out her mana in a much more smooth fashion. Chandra 6, really not the card that Jen was looking for this turn. At what point do you think Jen's forced to play this baby Krasis?
Hopefully not soon. Okay, soon.
It is going to be Omna.
Ugh. It's actually kind of tragic, because while Nessa's land development does look healthy now, it actually wasn't. There was lands being missed on both sides, and there was a turn where Jen could have played Omnath and risked not holding up Aether Gust. You actually said it. You said Jen could play Omnath and deal with Narset. Unfortunately, we didn't take that choice because we really needed to worry about Nissa, the card now in play, and we really did just get punished through a sequence of waitings and not drawing those lands. So pretty unfortunate for Jen here. But that does mean Nessa is on the board with 2 powerful Planeswalkers, some Earls in our graveyard, looking good.
Yeah, Ura coming back out of the graveyard as well now for Nessa. This Nissa looking pretty safe, although 2 copies of Aether Gust now in hand for Jen. Unfortunately, still no 4th land here. And
yeah, I hate to be right, but I called it in the very beginning that you want to keep these hands when you have amazing spells and 2 lands, but they can really feel kind of poopy when this happens, and unfortunately that is what happened. Okay, I can't tell where we did this.
So this was in the draw step.
Okay, I was wondering how cheeky we were being. I kind of. Oh, nice. Okay, nice.
Wow. Nissa, go on.
Oh, okay. That's not what I thought was gonna happen. So I thought what was gonna be cheeky is we did it in Nessa's upkeep, and then if they put it on top, we had the second gust for it. That's not what happened. Instead,
Nessa had the second copy of Nissa in hand. The first copy of Nissa did get sent to the bottom of the library from their Aether Gust, but unfortunately, the second copy of Aether Gust not able to resolve there. Thought Erasure now taking a look at
the second copy resolved. The Earl's on top.
Oh, of course. Sorry. I forgot that it targeted Uro.
It targeted Uro. That was that's where we got misstep.
Yeah.
Jen recognized this 6/6 is going to break me, and I need to deal with it now. So that's what happened. It was pretty interesting. There wasn't a lot of options for Jen there. Resources were really tight in terms of lands, and they tried their best to kind of come out the other end of that turn, but unfortunately, it didn't look like that happened.
Wow, I mean, that's good news for us, because that means we get to watch more Magic here between these 2 grindy strategies.
Do you like more Magic?
Here, decider here between Jen Krotz and Nessa Meow Meow in Division number 3 of the Venus and Mercury League. And this hand has 3 lands and a Risen Reef.
I like this. I love Risen Reef in this matchup. Especially, I didn't take a ton of look at Nessa's sideboard, but main board, we do not have spot removal for this Risen Reef. Other than countering it on the way down, we can't interact with it, other than sweepers. But, and I just think we're going to get a land or two out of it, and Jen can feel it too.
Definitely, I believe there were a couple of copies of Heartless Act, definitely at least one copy of Heartless Act, if not two, in the sideboard for Nessa. Wow, agonizing remorse.
Risen Reef, no.
Well, we'll see what Nessa decides to take. A whole smorgasbord of options, but does in the end go for that Risen Reef.
Nessa had respect for the Risen Reef. I can respect that.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed. Like it would be greedy to allow that Risen Reef to.
Yeah.
to
Agreed.
Go unchecked. All basics here for Nessa. Natural Sultai on the other side of the battlefield to Jen. God, I miss drafts so much, Caroline. I miss just having a greedy mana base and sitting down for game number 1 and going basic, basic, basic.
I love it.
Here comes the first shark we're seeing this evening. Just a 1/1 being made by Nessa, and we'll see whether this... Yeah, every time I just think, well, maybe Nessa doesn't have a land, because it feels from the way that, she's playing, cycling these shark typhoons. But does have that 4th land, so on we go. Jen, a bunch of options available to Jen this turn.
Yeah, so Jen's been playing this game pretty clearly in the seat of, I have a dispute and I have threats. I'm going to give myself the option to use my dispute to protect my threat. So I sort of see...
Ooh.
Okay. So I sort of see an option of either trying to get an Omnath into play there, or we're really holding on to this Gust. Nissa is always on the mind, as it should be for everybody else. And that's what this is to saying. Jen is like, I need to stop Nissa.
It's going to be an Uro.
Unfortunately, that knowledge is face up. And that makes it
yeah, it does make it a little easier to play around the Aether Gust when you know it's coming. Uro coming out of hand now for Nessa Meow Meow. Jen, thinking about this Aether Gust, and like we spoke about earlier, this Aether Gust is a full-on trade here with this Uro. Nessa just pondering, does in the end decide to put it back on top of the library.
Oh, that was a great draw. That was a fantastic draw. We need to hit an untapped land here. Oh no!
Aether Gust of Nessa's own to target this Cavalier of Thorns, and Jen has to decide whether to use this mystical or not. Does end up using it, which means that the shields are down on this.
Yeah, we were gonna hit an untapped land. Darn it.
Yeah. That would have been the ability to keep up that Aether Gust, but
and I think that Aether Gust would surprise Nessa, since we played the one from our hand. So hopefully we can dodge a Nissa this turn, which we did. And by we, I mean Jen did dodge a Nissa, which is pretty exciting.
Uro coming down for Nessa, just gonna do some ramping, go into the graveyard.
Wait, would you say it's doing Uro things?
Just Uro things. I'm gonna make a blog called Just Uro Things. We're gonna make a Twitter account.
I was thinking an album.
Oh, an album. Okay. That's a bit more complicated. I was just gonna tweet some shitposty Uro tweets. I'll be like, oh, escaping.
Another fantastic draw.
Yeah, coming down, drawing a negate here for Jen, and this Cavalier is going to start smashing in.
You may have noticed that shark stayed at home. You know why that shark stayed at home last turn? Because Cavalier of Thorns has a reach.
Caroline, always very au fait with what creatures have
Reach Watch 2020.
Reach Watch. Oh, they got 99 problems, but Reach ain't one.
It is currently a problem. But...
Okay, a little bit. We're coming out of the graveyard here.
I do want to highlight really the changes from game 1 and game 3. In game 1, I think Jen has permission to do a lot more of their plan uninterrupted. Though Nessa's deck is, wow. Sorry, maybe you should let everyone know what happened here. That was kind of a blowout.
Yeah, there's Aether Gust, targeting this Uro that's coming out the graveyard, and Nessa Meow Meow did actually have the mystical, but that negate that we saw Jen draw after Risen Reef coming in super handy here for Jen Kratz. Back over to Jen now. Hydro Crisis the draw for turn.
So this is I just wanted to quickly talk about. In game 1, we saw Jen be really conservative and hold those gusts and not interact with those Uros. And you actually asked me, hey, is this something you would do? And in game 3, we've seen a pretty big change in this tempo strategy of like, I'm going to interact with these Uros so that I can just keep attacking. And I really like it. Like, we're going to do 7 damage. We're going to attack here for 7 more because we played a land. Like, this is pretty impressive. And I think, there we go.
Wow.
Wow.
Jen just really has it all here. That negate coming off the trigger from the Omnath.
Omnath is odd. We didn't see it last game, so I'm just updating everybody.
So wait, Omnath is odd?
Or even. Sorry, I meant to say, it's the one creature that's not going to get swept other than Hydro Crisis. So that's pretty impressive. Because we have a lot of odd cards in our deck. So.
Nessa finding a Hydro Crisis of her own is just going to be a 2/2 though, and I have to say, Caroline, this Sultai deck has really not looked very impressive in the face of these elementals.
And I did highlight this really early on, is the Sultai deck is trying to get to the late game, and the Teamer deck is like, sure, let's go. Like, yeah, let's go. I'm ready. Because their spells are incredibly powerful in the late game. And really where you saw the struggle was when Jen did not get there. She got stuck on those 3 lands and just got left behind at the party. So I really don't know what the Sultai deck can do, since they want to be here, and so does Jen. Yeah,
I mean, you'd imagine that Nessa really looking for, first of all, something to keep this board under control. We're thinking about Extinction Event. I think that's actually the only relevant sweeper here. I believe Cry of the Carnarium in the board for Nessa, but not too relevant against these giant threats on Jen's side of the battlefield. But Jen, with that negate, and here it is.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on here. We have the negate, but I think we have lethal anyway. If we draw a land, 1, 2. Oh no, I guess we are short actually. Okay, well, let's see. Let's find out if I'm right.
Right.
Yorian, I should clarify what I meant. Yorian can flicker Omnath for some extra points of damage.
Right. So. Let's see. There is also a Chandra Awakened Inferno in hand for Jen as well.
We can't play... Oh, we can play both. Oh, yeah, okay. We should have lethal now. So this is 5. Okay. Wow.
Oh, how about with Genesis Ultimatum? Gotta go for it, right? Come on, Jen. Style points here. Just finds 3 lands and another copy of Omnath.
There's actually a lot of options there. I really love that we just went for the Genesis Ultimatum, which honestly could have bricked, but it would have been really hard to brick because lands are +1/+1. Spells are great, so we were likely super solidified. But I just wanted to explain the options that I had in my head, which included a post-combat Yorion to flicker that Omnath, doing 2 extra damage, and then the Chandra would do, which I think we had enough mana for because of the Leaf Kindred. The Chandra would do that extra point with the emblem. So we were pretty solidified no matter what. But
so one. Oh. Jen takes one.
Go ahead, Hayu.
Jen takes this 2 games to 1 in Division 3.
Hayu, can you not hear me?
I can hear you now. but
Okay.
I couldn't.
Cool. Well, that was a pretty exciting matchup. It did kind of go as my brain was processing it, but Magic doesn't always work out that way. I really appreciated Nessa's list in the sense that they did really recognize, like, hey, I'm not going to be playing against Mono Green this week. And that did pay off. Like, they had all the things they could deal with. They had the main deck disputes. We haven't seen main deck disputes in a long time. So we had a bunch of Aethergust, we had Negates. She had the things to deal with Jen's plan, but Jen's plan, unfortunately, is also just let's put a bunch of stuff into play and see what happens. So.
Yeah, I mean the overwhelming power of the team at Elementals, this especially once that engine got going in games 1 and 3, Sultai kind of unable to keep up the you can't answer everything, and with that deck you really have to answer everything before things snowball out of control, as we saw Jen do there. All right, so we have just got the one match left this evening. It's a pretty big, exciting one here. It's going to be from Division 5 of the VML. By the way, if you're just joining us, welcome. You're watching the Venus and Mercury League. I'm Hayu and I'm with Caroline. The two of us kind of, we started out here together, casting, doing some things all the way back in season 1, and now we recently have made it to the top, and by that I mean Caroline won season 2, and then we put ourselves in charge of the.
I have 2 comments. One, I thought you meant this broadcast. I thought you were talking about an hour and a half ago. And 2, why don't we have our titles on our stream? We need to talk to whoever's in charge about that. Like, where's our titles? Let's go. Coach her up.
So we are. Yeah, so
that's
Caroline and I,
people calling on it. Hayu's on it. There are people are calling.
Sort it out. All right, so we are now ready to go down to our last feature match of the evening, and it's going to be a big one. All the way from Division 5, we've got Ali Warfield, Meebo, or Mythic Meebo as she's sometimes known, against Bloody, and this is going to be a huge clash of these two very, very distinguished players, and also members of the community and streamers here in the VML. So let's have a look at what they're playing. All right, let's look at Meebo's list first. Meebo has brought Teamer Flash this week, Caroline, and I'm just so happy to see this deck being represented this week.
Hayu, you made it into the deck.
I did! For those of you who don't know, Sublime Epiphany is like kind of a pet card of mine, and
it's your invitational card.
It's my invitational card, and one of our friends very hilariously photoshopped my face onto the face of the woman opening her mind, as it were. So that's been my Discord avatar for a while, and I'm really, really happy to see Meebo bring Sublime Epiphany, just the one copy in this Team of Flash list. Looking at the main board here, Meebo, it's actually a pretty much an all Simic main board with just some red cards on the side.
Yes. Yes, and this is a pretty, like, old school in the sense that Standard's not that old and nothing's that old, but it's an old school approach to this Flash style of just 4 wolves, brings some frilled mystics, some counter spells, the planeswalkers. We don't have the Paradise Druids or any sort of ramp like that. And then the sideboard is just saying when things go bad, or if things go bad, what can we do to save them? But I am struggling to see what the card is above Tail's End. There's 3 copies of it.
It's 3 copies of Quench.
Oh, I was like, what is that card? Of course, I block out the existence of Quench, so it would make sense that I wouldn't be able to see it. Because when my opponent taps 2 mana and is a flash deck, I close my eyes and I'm like, I can't see it. I didn't get countered.
You just like deny the existence. You're like, no, it's not happening. Go away. I've actually played quite a lot of this. Certainly the Simic strategy I played quite a lot of. We didn't play Narcissist back in the day in this strategy, and of course Sharks weren't around. But like you say, these decks used to play a little bit more ramp, some Paradise Druids, of course when Growth Spiral was in the format, and then for the top end it was more copies of Nissa and some Hydro Crazies as well. But we see Meebo putting those Crazies in the side and just leaving those 2 copies of Uro in the main, choosing to go for this reactive strategy.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this plays out. One thing I appreciated about this whole coverage that we've been doing is we have gotten to see some pretty sweet decks. Like, as much as, there was some hate on this standard format, and it is now past us, so there's now hate in this standard format. Everyone always said, oh, it's a 1-deck format. It's only Sultai. And we have proven tonight that that's not true. Like, we saw Teamer Elementals really fight its way through. We're about to see this Teamer Flash deck, which I think is against Sultai. At least that's what Meebo thought it was going to be against.
Yeah. Well, let's go over now and have a look. We have got Bloody on the other side, and both of these players at 1-0. So, positive records at this point in time for both of them. Bloody on Sultai ramp, and when we asked Bloody what her plan in the matchup was, she said to play as many discards as possible. And I have to say, as somebody that has played the Flashes before, if you get your hand taken apart, it is scary.
Yeah, I can imagine that you can't protect all the discards. They're actually pretty cheap and pretty early, and you're no hand, no magic.
No hand, no magic. So we'll see whether Bloody Sultai list can stop Meebo, carrying out that flash plan, or whether Meebo can use some of these counter spells to stop the game-ending threats here from Bloody. Let's go down to the match now. Opening hands for both players.
I did want to highlight here the effort that these players went into arranging this match. Really specifically for us. As much as we joked about it, we understand that, new sets equal new issues for MTG Arena. And the last couple of days actually have been very challenging to play Magic. And I happen to know that Bloody and Meebo both rescheduled to play this match very early this morning, just so we would have the footage in time for tonight. So we appreciate that. And we hope that, everyone else is out there playing Magic now that Arena is hopefully on its chest.
Hopefully.
I'd love to highlight what just happened.
Yeah.
Not the spell, the emote.
I got very excited because I was like, wow, we're going to talk about this agonizing remorse. No. Bloody talked about it in her interview. No. Let's go to the
adorable.
It is so adorable. This little Heaton with a heart.
Anyway, talk about Magic.
All right. So Bloody curving agonizing remorse into Nasser on turn number 3. Meebo with a handful of reactive spells, Brazen Borrower, 2 copies of Sinister Sabotage, and Nissa Who Shakes the World.
Meebo feels very set up here. Our mana was a rocky. We overcome that. I don't think Narset is insanely powerful against us. We do have the Borrowers to eventually try and deal with it. Or in this case, bounce it. But for the rest of the game, we just have all these counterspells. I'm feeling pretty solid.
Yeah, this Tameo is known information as well for Meebo, since I believe Bloody got that off the first Nasa activation. So this Mystical Dispute in hand, looking very good here for Meebo, able to counter either this Nasa, should it come down again, or the Tameo Collector of Tales. See what Bloody decides to do here.
And this is just as you drew it up, play the face-up card into the not face-up counterspell.
Yeah, huge trade up in mana here as Mystical Dispute gets to put that Tameo away. And Tameo, I have to say, Caroline, is going to be one of the cards that I'm pretty sad to see leave the standard format.
I didn't feel like Tameo ever got her day in the sun. Like, she was always there, but never the highlight. Yeah. Oh, actually, I think I'm wrong. I guess if you count the Nexus decks.
Yeah.
If you count the Nexus decks, I realized Tameo actually did see a lot of play. But I blocked those kind of things out of my mind. That's why I forgot about it, but
Bloody developing out here with a 3/3 Hydroid Crisis, going to draw a card, gain a life. Overgrown Tomb, the draw. Still that copy of Nasa in hand, as well as Ugin the Spirit Dragon. That one's a little further away. Wow, this Brazen Borrower getting in for 3 damage. And, no 5th land here for Meebo, but a lot of instant speed effects.
There's a lot of love for Nexus in chat, and I'm very torn. I'm just like, wait. You know that it was Nexus, right?
Meebo letting this Narset go. It's going to resolve and be able to tick down.
One thing I'm concerned about Meebo's hand at this point is something I've just been concerned about all night is no lands. We've just been in this spot where our decks are doing the things we want them to do, but without the lands, that can't happen. And I'm afraid that if we're not drawing lands, which we just did, we could get run over. But luckily that didn't happen. So we do get to try and deal with this Narset.
Yeah, both players really being very, very conservative with their resources. Bloody just holding up that Aether Gust. Not going to deploy the Thought Erasure. And then Meebo as well, you see, did have the option here to temporarily get rid of the Hydro Crisis, but decides to chump attack that Shark token away instead.
I think I like that. Like we still have a 3-power creature that can deal with the Crisis should we need so. And we have only access to 5 mana this turn, but this Brazen Borrow may come in handy later. So I like that exchange, and then hold up these counter spells and potentially another 3/1 flyer should we need it.
Thought Erasure now from Bloody. The second discard spell, getting rid of that key threat, Nissa Who Shakes the World.
Which we could have cast last turn if Meebo chose to, but it's pretty clear that she really wants these counter spells up at all times. So.
Oh, I'm not going to complain about that. Oh, God Mystic. My second favorite card in Old Standard. Off the top for Meebo.
Is your list of favorite cards just all blue spells that counter in some way?
No. Wait, is Aether Gust a blue spell that counters in some way?
Yes.
Oh. Maybe?
Okay.
Wait, no, Tamio was on it.
I don't know how
she gets a counter spell out of your graveyard.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. How far do you want to go on the some way category? Because she can go get a negate. Oh, I have been Tamioed into like negate or Aether Gust is just so sad.
So Bloody actually used an Aether Gust to save her Hydro Crisis from the trade with the Brazen Borrower. It's going to come down, but the body at least is going to be countered by this Frilled Mystic.
Sorry, I was just realizing how insane Sublime Epiphany would have been on that turn.
Sublime Epiphany, just so great when you get to do all the modes. Like, it's just nothing better.
So we had a great draw. Sorry, I was stealing your role a little bit, but I was just excited. We had a great draw with Nissa, which now leaves us in this spot of just hold up Sabotage for the rest of the game.
Well, and it's interesting because Bloody did draw that copy of Casualties of War. Traditionally, very good card against Nissa Who Shakes the World, but we do see 3 lethal threats on board for Meebo. Ugin the Spirit Dragon, not going to do a huge deal here because of that, not only the Sinister Sabotage in hand, but, the Ketria Triumph that's animated does not get exiled by the Uro Sweeper effect.
I have to admit, I was focusing so much on Meebo's hand and just saying, like, how are we getting through these turns? How are we getting through these turns? That I did it again, and I looked up, I was like, hey, our opponent's at 3 life. That's a pretty good life total to be at.
Yeah. 3 life, 3 lethal attackers with a 4th one available in hand for Meebo as well. Difficult to see how Bloody is going to get out of this one.
Uro does help.
Okay, so Uro gonna buff the life total back up to 6. Do some Uro things.
Do some Uro things. I think Uro gets to come back again, but again, as you've said, it's just still not enough. We have a hidden 4th attacker as well. So Bloody's got a long way to go on this turn. And face-up counterspells for whatever we want, whenever we want it.
God, Caroline, you sell counterspells so well that I'm surprised you don't play more of them in your regular everyday life.
Are you surprised? I wanted to just be attacking. Like, I would have played the Nissa. I was like, maybe I'll just play the Brazen Bar when I feel like it. I was like, let's do some damage. What are these counterspells? What are they even doing?
I mean, I've been so impressed, I have to say, with both of these competitors' patience and their ability to reserve their resources for when they most need it. Ali, of course, coming off pretty recently, I believe, a top 4 finish in one of the PCs earlier this year, and Bloody, we definitely see putting up results as well, and actually making it onto the commentary team for the Mythic Invasion.
I was going to bring that up.
So, looking at the sideboard, are you doing much of your Meebo?
I don't think so. Like, I commented on this earlier that I really think the sideboard screams to me like, hey, I have trouble with aggressive decks. And our deck was, already kind of geared to fight on these axes, like with the counter spells and our threats. We're doing some switching around. The quenches in general are, just kind of a downer of a card anyway. So those ones look like they headed to the sideboard. I saw possibly a Ceratops, but I don't think it ended up coming in. I missed it. Sorry.
That's okay. I did see Clothis being considered.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a tough one to deal with. So.
Yeah, pretty nice against Uro as well. Let's have a look at Bloody sideboard now. The magic of recorded footage, meaning we get to see both sides. And it looks like it's going to be a couple of Disdainful Strokes and reactive spells coming in.
Sort of same goes for Bloody sideboard. Is it generally these big decks that are doing these things like mid range do struggle with aggressive decks. So they their sideboard looks kind of the same. It's a bunch of cards that are ready for the aggressive matchup, and Meebo might be able to punish that with their counter spells and their more annoying threats like the Wolf Nightpack Ambusher. There we go.
And we see Bloody actually opting to take out some of these, or at least thinking about taking out some of these clunkier Planeswalkers. We saw them be not very impressive last game against the flying threats from Meebo, as well as the cheap counterspells. And I just really want to point out, and something to really bring out to the audience as well, is that I think a lot of us rush through sideboarding. I know I do. Like, I have this idea, like, oh, I know what I'm going to put in, I'm going to take out. But it's really nice to see Bloody really take her time and think about every single card.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Often I actually take a quick bathroom break during sideboarding sometimes, just to center myself and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm focused, especially in an important match like this. We had some mulligans, I think. I think we had a mulligan from Meebo, and I think we had a keep from Bloody.
Yes, I believe that is right. Meebo keeping this 2-lander after the mulligan. Thought Erasure having a look at Meebo's hand now. Lots of options here.
A lot of options for sure. I'm trying to decide what I'm inclined to take here, and really nothing other than maybe this Clothies, just because of how tricky it will be to deal with. And I happen to see in sideboarding that Bloody sided out some Aether Gusts. So in terms of threats that's going to be annoying, Clothies is high up on that list. But you gotta flip the coin and say, what about my threats? Am I going to be able to land any of them these days if I have face down a Gust and a Sabotage? So really a really powerful choice to make here. It's like, what action am I trying to say here? I want to get rid of your threats, or I want to protect my own threats.
Yeah, looking at Bloody's hand as well. There are copies of Narset and Nissa in hand for Bloody, so ultimately gonna go with that Shark Typhoon, valuing the ability to keep Meebo off that Air Force that we saw in the previous game.
Honestly, it might just be a nod to evaluating that Meebo has no lands, and Shark Typhoon is one of the, best way to put a threat against something like this Narset, which we're seeing, and potentially draw more lands. So pretty heads up play of saying like, hey, let's keep Meebo off drawing those lands with some extra cards. So
yeah, and Meebo really not finding any help from the top of her library, as it is going to be Frilled Mystic into Nissa, not the cards you want to see when you're at 2 mana.
Yes, unfortunately, that is not what we were looking for. And the more land drops Bloody makes and the ones we don't pulls us further and further away. And we don't really even have a ton of way of interacting with anything good that Bloody can play on 4 other than this Aether Gust. So it's not looking fantastic.
Second copy of Thought Erasure now for Bloody. Has a look, and Meebo just has to say, yep, didn't draw lands, just drew 4 drops and 5 drops.
Yeah. Well, that. So the Thought Erasure, has the same questions we had earlier. They haven't changed, with now more options. Though I don't feel like we're likely to be taking 4 and 5 mana spells from our opponent that only has 2 lands in play. But I've been wrong before, and I'm happy to be wrong again.
Yeah, looks like Bloody's going to take that copy of Aether Gust. Looking at Bloody's hand, there are 2 copies of Negate and a copy of Eliminate available to her. And wow, no third land off the top. Meebo is going to scoop this one up, and it's going to be a quick game 2 into a decider here in Division 5.
And you know what that means, Hayu?
What does it mean?
More Magic.
Oh! Wow, love to see more Magic here between these 2 titans of the game in 2020. Anything you're changing here in terms of play draw?
Honestly, I think in this particular spot, you have a lot more knowledge, because the Sultai is just a very long list of 1, 2s, and 3s. And I got nothing. Like, yeah, I might want some of these cards.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you've got to think about the number of eliminates on the play versus on the draw, because your opponent has access to Narset. But eliminate is just really bad against the rest of the deck. Like, it can take care of some Nissa lands, it can do some things, but really it's not I don't know, it's not taking care of wolves. It's not, there's just, it doesn't take care of Nissa. It's just kind of, you don't want too many. And yeah, I like this light touch approach here from Bloody. Opening hands now for both players in the decider. I believe Bloody kept pretty quickly.
I was going to say it was a Sneap from Bloody and a Multa 6 for Meebo. But this is a decent Multa 6, I think.
Yeah, 3 lands here for Meebo. Sinister Sabotage, Narset, Hydrocrisis, and Frilled Mystic. Although one of those cards is going to be going away very shortly.
Yep. We're back to this game state of Thought Erasure taking their toys away, and it's not very nice.
Well, this is what Bloody spoke about before the match when we asked her for her views on the matchup, which is that these discard spells are just so key to disrupting Meebo's game plan.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing here. No cards, no magic. I'm pretty sure someone very smart said this about 20 minutes ago, so can't recall who it was, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
All right, Meebo shocking the 3rd land in here. Sinister Sabotage up and ready. Bloody says, are you going to counter this?
Nope. We are not.
And possibly for the final time, but probably not this evening, we are doing Uro-Thing.
Oh. Definitely not doing it for the final time this standard, because while the wills of Twitter may want it, it did not rotate.
So. Everyone just, honestly, I genuinely had a moment where I thought maybe it was rotating because I just associated with Nissa and Hydroid Crisis so much. I thought maybe the whole package was going, but no.
Get ready to associate it with Lotus Cobra.
Oh, nice. All right, Bloody. No fifth land here for Bloody. It's going to look at the hand of Thought Erasure, double negate, eliminate, and difficult to see that last card. Probably a Narset, I imagine.
Yeah, I would bet by the converted mana cost it would be a Narset. It's a tricky position to put yourself to, to say I'm gonna wait to counter the counters deck. But that's sort of the position Bloody has had to put herself in because, there's losing land drops is really key with a deck like this, and not having them means, hey, I gotta hold off and hope nothing terrible happens to me. So I get that for sure.
Bloody really thinking about this Thought Erasure at least.
Yeah, it's a tough call.
Ooh. Passes the turn, but no fifth land for Meebo either. So both players playing this waiting game, but Bloody does find a breeding pool off the top. That Narset now in hand available, as well as a 2-mana spell. Casualties of War and Ugin, the finishers in hand.
Meebo, was ahead in terms of options, but once we also missed our fifth land drop, and it's gonna be tough because we're fighting here with the Thought Erasure, and do we keep fighting? It looks like we battled, yeah.
Yeah, it's
not on the battlefield,
counter-war.
on the stack.
This is the best place to battle.
Yes, your negate resolves.
Yeah, you can have that one. All right. So,
there we go. Okay.
Wow. Nice. Fifth land for Meebo. So both players did miss their fifth land drop, but able to find it a turn later. And Overgrown 2 means mana troubles are somewhat in the past now for Bloody. If you're Meebo here, what are you thinking about in the next couple of turns?
Well, I'm thinking of whether or not my Night Pact Ambushers are even, hanging around. Because one thing you noticed about the game 1 was while this waiting game was happening, we were attacking for 3 damage a turn. And we're not doing that right now. And without that ability to chip in some damage, the life totals are staying the same. And I think that favors Bloody because Bloody's late game spells are pretty powerful. Ugin is a pretty crazy one. We have Nissas of our own. And so Meebo has that advantage of, if she can get a little creature in there and start chipping in, this Shark Typhoon, by the way, will potentially play that role shortly. But that puts us forward. Right now, we're not in that spot, and I think that's fine. Both players are stuck on 5 anyway. And this Frilled Mystic is also going to fill that spot. And just so you know, you can't negate a Frilled Mystic. It is not a spell. Well, it is a spell, but it's not instant or sorcery.
I am well aware, having stared down Frilled Mystic
non-creature,
or being the person to cast Frilled Mystic into the gates before. That's going to take care of Nasa, and a pretty big swing here for Meebo as they find the sixth land, in fact, off the top, and is able to start chipping in now with this Frilled Mystic.
Yes, and this is the spot I wanted Meebo to be in, which is now I have a 3-power creature on the board. I'm taking chunks of your life total away, and I have one for sure way to interact with your next spell, potentially, and another way of getting a big threat in play with the Shark Typhoon. So feeling potentially a little bit safer here. That being said, Bloody could draw this Nissa. I think that was a draw for the turn. It could have been a pretty powerful option, though. Bloody seems to be honoring the fact that, like, hey, I can't really play Nissa into a face-up sabotage, so.
Yeah.
But I can play an arrow into a face-up sabotage.
Yeah. Bloody making great use of her mana there, leaving up that negate, taking care of the Sinister Sabotage, and ending up with this Uro on board. Mivo is going to make this baby shark here.
And that Uro really does a number on us, because not only does it negate our 3 damage that we were so excited for, it also negates any more damage that we could do with it. We don't have a ton of ways of dealing with a landed Uro. And so instead we just have to go the baby shark route, which we all know how that goes.
I mean, it's very interesting to me as well that Meebo decided to show restraint on this Hydroid Crisis as well, because a lot of the time with these matchups, you sometimes see that when one player starts tapping out, then both players have this cascading effect where they try to take advantage of the tapped outness of their opponent. But Meebo holding onto that Hydroid Crisis for now.
Well, I was really excited that we drew in such a way that puts Bloody in a bit of a safety of like, I've dealt with all the counter spells, my spells are resolving, let's battle. And then we're like, oh, JK, we drew the Sabotage. And actually, not only did we draw the Sabotage, we actually drew the Dispute to battle even further should we need to. So I'm pretty happy to not cast that Crisis on that turn. Ooh, there's a way to deal with the Uro. But, you know, probably not a great way to deal with it when Discord crashes on you.
Yeah. We just have a tiny bit of technical difficulty here. We're not sure if you guys can still hear us. Please say so if you can.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a specific Discord issue.
Okay.
So what we can do is pull up the stream. Unfortunately we're going to be a little delayed, but we're going to keep going based on what we see on stream. So we'll be a couple seconds behind. So while Hayu's pulling up the stream, we did. So we got that ooze, which I was joking to deal with Uro, and then Illuminate was cast on it, but we actually had that second second counterspell, which I kind of prepped about how great that was. So we did get that Mystical Dispute to counter the, I'm pretty sure it countered the Illuminate. And okay, so I saw one server come back, so the other one might be back shortly too.
That would be good, because generally when I watch Twitch, I seem to have like a 30-second delay behind everyone else, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, chat's mentioning specifically, it's a bunch of Discords crashed, and you could see because there was a bunch of little white exclamation marks. So unfortunately, we do use Discord to show the matches. So we will be back. We're actually back right now, which is great.
Oh. Okay.
Well, the Discord server that we're using is back. That is for certain. Whether or not I can join the voice channel is not clear. So Bloody did put that Hydra Crisis into play. I will say Bloody has 2 great attackers, and Meebo's life is at 6. So not looking good from this side. And yes, I very appreciate your patience, as I cannot get into this voice channel at the moment. I would recommend potentially jumping to the other channel if you can. See if we can join that one. Okay, so Meebo drew some pretty powerful spells. We have this Hydra Crisis that we've been chilling on for a while, which would be able to battle the other 4/4 Crisis. But we also just drew a pretty powerful Nissa. Unfortunately, it's going to get gusted, which does actually spell the end of the road for Meebo. As everyone can see, that does put Bloody winning this matchup 2-1, and putting them at 2-0 in their division, which is pretty exciting. And that means you're back with us, and we don't need Discord anymore because we're on Skype for this. So,
wow. Yeah, I mean, I did miss the end thing, but very well done to Bloody. Congratulations for winning that particular matchup. And of course, Meebo is going to be at 1-1. So, long way yet to go in the season for both of these competitors. What a great matchup, though. Like, just some really great magic to see. We saw both players being very deliberate with their decisions, being very aware of how to manage their resources, when to use them, when to play out, when to stay back. And I think, lots of lessons to be learned for everybody.
Agreed. I think the whole evening was full of some fantastic magic. We got to see that, the enemy of the format from last season, Sultai, sometimes it was maybe successful, and other times It was like elementals are in here to show you how to jam. But honestly, I had a blast hanging out with you tonight. We saw some mono green, which is a favorable deck for me. I really liked it. Took me to 2-0 lead in season 2, so I'm pretty excited about that. Or season 3. Sorry.
I mean, and just to go off what you're saying, Caroline, it's been really great to have this sunset show for the standard format, because we have seen a lot of decks. This has been a pretty controversial period of time for standard. It's been a pretty up and down kind of battle that we saw, decks rising, decks falling, cards being printed, cards being banned. I'm sure Michaela is still somewhere crying over the remnants of Fires of Invention. And it's actually kind of at the end, in the last month or so of standard, we really did actually reach this point where, there was a big baddie of the format, there was Sultai, but all of these other strategies were able to flourish. And I think that's really encouraging as we go into the new standard season.
Hayu, do you have anything that you're eyeing? So we can give away secret tech for whoever your opponent is.
Oh, okay. What I really want to be good is blue-black rogues. What I don't know if will be good or not is blue-black rogues. So we'll see. I know everyone's already talking about this 4-color Omnath deck. I'm going to do a little bit of testing over the weekend. I'm actually going to be casting the Channel Fireball Pro Showdown tournament tomorrow. So that's going to be one of the first big tournaments of this standard season. So if you are about, I'm going to be starting at about 2 p.m. Pacific on the Channel Fireball Twitch stream, and I'll be with Huey, and we'll be covering all of the matches in the second half of the tournament of New Standard.
Well, if we're speaking of things that I'm up to this weekend, I will be participating in the showdown, and hopefully you'll be covering my match, because I will still be in it. But on Sunday, I will be also casting over on the Mythic Society channel the Set Roulette tournament, which is, I think, our 6th attempt at doing this. Pretty excited. We take a bunch of random sets throughout Magic history, and we test Caroline on what cards exist. That's, I'm pretty sure, the format of the tournament.
Yeah, I've done a lot of trying to learn the card names recently. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but last night I was just in this frenzy.
I was on the call with you.
Well, right, but then I got so into a frenzy that I made this collage of all the crazy card names.
I love it.
And it was just a million cards that have 2 different names because they flip and all of that. So if you want to come and see me get some card names wrong, definitely join me on Saturday, and definitely join Caroline on Sunday for some Set Roulette goodness.
I am just reading chat that if you are not sick of us, because you shouldn't be, and you want to hang out with more awesome VML people, some of which you even saw tonight in our coverage, both Nessa, Meow Meow, and Jana are streaming, and I wonder if potentially our awesome producer can do a little raid action and get our viewers over to them and get them checked out.
That'd be awesome. Oh, sorry. Final thing before we go, we did actually open a Patreon because which we completely forgot to plug, but we actually opened a Patreon. So if you type !Patreon into the chat, we've been doing this several seasons now, and it's been completely voluntary on the part of the coverage team. So both our producers, our casters, our admin, everybody has been doing this, just giving their time, contributing their time and resources into this project. And we are really looking for some kind of support that can help us tide over a little bit, so that it can just to compensate our work and our producers especially, who put in a lot of hours every single week into bringing you the VML. So that is so Patreon is in the chat now if you guys want to subscribe. If you want to donate to the prize pool, you also can type !donate. That will take you to the Match Arena page. Other than that,
unfortunately the link that we provided does not work. So and I can't log in because someone added their phone to our email. So we will have to plug it on a different day.
I believe it's just the dot on the end. So I've just
Okay. So it's just the dot on the command. Okay, we're good to go. There's our real life.
Yeah. All right, so all that's left to do, I guess, this evening is to thank all of our competitors, of course, in the VML. Nothing could happen without them.
We have a patron.
We do. We
didn't before this link didn't work. So.
Oh.
That's exciting.
Oh, thank you so much, DC. We really, really appreciate the support. And Caroline and I will be back in 2 weeks. Next week, it's going to be I
have an important question. Because our plan is for the patron to display all of our patrons' names on our thank you screen.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, would DC Sports like their name displayed twice?
Okay. Well, DC, you can tell us if you want your name displayed.
Their name is already on our thank you page.
DC was super generous and did donate to the prize pool as well. So thank you very much for supporting the VML, not just this season, but every season.
Both sides.
Yeah,
both sides of the VML.
So thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Thank you to Phoebe, our producer, who's awesome. Thank you to Angel of Grace for making our super cool new overlays. Thanks to the whole team, everyone at Sugoi, everyone at Aspen, and of course our awesome partners, Lodestone Coffee and Games in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Definitely check them out.
You're crushing the pronunciation of that city. I'm very impressed.
All right.
Anyway, please check us out this weekend as well. Find us on all the various places on the internet, including on Twitter at niphette and at niphette.
All right. Thank you for hanging out, and we will see you in 2 weeks, but definitely come back next week for more VML action in week 2.
See you later.